like today share with you a few thoughts that I feel are quite relevant when talking about dashboards and market research. During the next probably 30 to 40 minutes, I will share, of course, examples, but also the core concepts that are relevant to know when working with dashboard or creating dashboards. I think we can all agree that in market research, the delivery of results is the most relevant and impactful touch point. And I'm talking here about deliveries itself, so independent if it's dashboard or a PowerPoint report. So everything that is connected to the delivery of results of market research. And I think we need to invest more time into this delivery and the way we deliver information, because that's the main thing customers of market research see. So they don't see all the pain you have with field work and maybe where you struggle with doing great analytics. The only thing they see is the final result. And in the end, they will judge, of course, also their investment, depending on if it more looks like the left one or the right one. And of course, today during this webinar, we want to talk about dashboards as the main delivery. Hence, we need to understand how can we create a better touchpoint experience when using dashboards. And mainly because we want to understand how we will gain more and better insights when using dashboards. Is that really the case? Or is it just a waste of money? Will data be used more intensively just because we have a dashboard? And of course, last but not least, will we save money long term compared to other deliveries, like, for instance, just creating a PowerPoint deck? And in the end, we will, of course, see that there are a lot of upsides of using dashboards if you do it the right way. And you will probably then see that in the end, it is more likely that people gain better insights and that they're mainly using the data more intensively than just having reports. And that will save us a lot of money long term. Well, when we talk about dashboards, people often think of a dashboard as an efficient way to provide users with relevant information in time. I think that is a quite good description. I want to see for today the dashboard term as a very, very broad concept. Normally, if you're precise, of course, the word or term dashboard should be only used for KPI dashboards. However, today we use the term dashboard for everything that is related to working interactively with data. So when we talk about online dashboards, there is one really big challenge I would like to point out in the beginning. And I would like to explain it by comparing a dashboard with a live presentation. So when we talk about a live presentation, we all agree probably that the amount of control the presenter has is quite high, because he can, present a good narrative arc. He can point out the relevant information. He can, of course, also answer questions from the audience. So, and of course also can take an eye on the pace of the presentation, just to make sure everyone can follow. On the other hand, due to the given time frame, we probably have a very low level of details we can provide during a presentation. Now, let's compare that with a dashboard. When we compare that with the dashboard, it's vice versa. So suddenly, the level of detail is very, very high. With a dashboard, you can, of course, provide access to every single data point. However, unfortunately, the amount of control can be very, very low, because suddenly the user sits in front of his dashboard and now needs to find a way how to detect things, how to understand what the information is all about, and then, of course, also in the end come to maybe some conclusions. So what we need to do, we need to decide on a plan that helps us to increase the control so that a user can more easily reveal insights from a dashboard. Because as we said in the beginning, we want to make, of course, more out of the data and want to make sure that the data is used as often as possible to make sure that we also, of course, get a good return on investment based on the market research data. So we need basically to decide on a plan for how data, analytics, frontline tools, and people come together to transform data into decisions. Very simple. However, of course, there are some tricks to consider, some hurdles to take, and I will try to explain what is needed and what kind of concepts we see today to assure this transformation in the best way. Well, what needs to be covered on this process from data to decision? Very simple, 3 core steps. First of all, we need to detect something in the data, which means we might want to detect variations, relations between variables. We want to see, of course, trends, and of course, reveal some core messages that are in the data. Sometimes we even want to see patterns. So it's mainly about detecting what's in the data. After we did that, we want to understand. We want to understand the root cause of the message. We want to understand the root cause of the relation, of the variation of maybe different customer segments, to just in the end summarize our findings and then go into the third step, which is about weighing mainly action alternatives so that we can recommend actions and therefore enable decisions. The last 2 steps, of course, are also related with additional further context that is needed and discussions maybe with experts. Of course, we will see more and more that dashboards will also take care of this process steps. Just, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about modeling and of course, creating more advanced equations of patterns, and then make, of course, decisions more fact-based. However, still today, most companies I work with and I talk to are in the process of detecting and understanding data in a better way. However, we need to understand if we can just have a one-fits-all approach, so that if there are only one dashboard concept that can make sure that all these 3 steps are managed and supported in the best way. Unfortunately not, because in the end we need to understand the business question that is driving the market research. And just let's compare 2 extremes. So on the one hand, a weekly customer experience closed loop process where you want to immediately act on customer feedback, or on the other hand, a one-off customer understanding study which should support you with understanding customers' beliefs and needs. And you can imagine that both market research approaches probably require a very different approach of how the dashboard should look like. So how much time do we spend today on these 3 value-adding stages? So on the one hand, probably we all agree that detection is something where we spend a lot of money on. Mainly because we do a lot of things still manually by, of course, creating tables first and then copying maybe results from the tables into my PowerPoint and then flipping through the PowerPoint slides, trying to find the most relevant information. So we spend a lot of time on this process step. And since time is always, of course, short and decisions need to be done faster, we can spend less and less time on the further steps like understanding the root causes and, of course, weighing alternatives, trying to understand what could be done better in the future, so what decisions are relevant to make the most out of the market research data. And that is, of course, something which is probably not perfectly aligned with the value of each step. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to do it exactly vice versa. So we would like to spend less time on the detection, because that should be mainly maybe automated, and then have more and more time for the more relevant steps like understanding the root causes, by also maybe having discussions with colleagues, of course adding further context, and then last but not least, of course, spend as much as time on discussing alternatives, and based on that recommending the right decisions. And this is probably where dashboards come into their own. They can help us simplify and accelerate this transformation. And for today, we would like to focus on the first two steps, so the detect part and the understand part. As I mentioned before, when we talk about the more deep understanding or the weighing of alternatives, we need to go into the mining and modeling section, which we will touch for a minute. But for today, I would like to point to these two basic steps, because I see today the biggest advantage and biggest step to smarter decisions, when we are able to make the detection process and understanding process simpler and accelerate them, so that we have more time on the later stages. So let's talk about the three core concepts that can exactly do the simplification and acceleration of the transformation. I call them, on the one hand, slice to see, which is the green one. We have the yellow one, the mine to model section, and we have the measure to manage section. And with these three concepts, we cover the entire dashboard market. So there are no other solutions that can't be allocated in this environment. And all three concepts, of course, support different aspects when it comes to the detection, the understanding, and the weighing. And I want to share with you in more detail a few examples, so that you get a better understanding which solution to use when. And when we look at market research approaches, we see that the slice to see concepts will mainly focus on simplifying and accelerating detection. So detection should be much faster compared to doing it manually by creating tables and then maybe PowerPoints based on the tables. And they should help users to easier understand the data, because it's much easier to get in touch with the data. On the other hand, we have the measure to manage applications that definitely want to automate detection. So we want to eliminate the need to detect something, because the system already provides you everything on a silver plate, and therefore the manager has more time for the understanding process, because we help him to simplify and accelerate this process. As I said, mind to model, we are not going to focus on mind to model, but I have one chart so that you understand the difference, especially to the slides to see later. Good. When we talk about market research studies, just to give you a heads up on this, we see that slice to see applications, of course, are mainly relevant when we talk about ad hoc studies, when we talk about new data sources, when we talk about, for instance, market research approaches like market understanding studies, so everything that is not done regularly, or which is new for the user, so that he needs a solution to get in touch with the information. On the other hand, when we talk about measure to manage applications, we see things like campaign management or a customer experience closed loop process, where it's more about to align with the key activities of the user and continuously provide him with new information so that he can steer his business into the right direction. Trend trackers are sometimes in between, so some are very, very measure to manage like, and really try to support managers in managing their brand on a weekly or on a monthly level. Sometimes they have more the core of trying to understand the brand landscape, and then they are maybe more related to the slice to see area. Let's look into the slice to see applications first. As I said, slice to see applications help business people and analysts to explore data. And the goal is they should get familiar with the data more easily, especially, for instance, when there is a new research and you have no clue about the results. And of course, you would like to get familiar with the results. You want to see outliers, you want to see trends, variations. Then you want to start discover messages contained in the data, so that you can start, of course, also to reveal insights, like doing some root cause analysis. And last but not least, of course, you want to create purposeful stories. That is the main goal of this concept section. So it's about simplifying and accelerating detection, and we want to simplify the understanding. When we talk about these these slice to see applications, we need to understand that there are different sub-concepts we want to just shed some light on, and they differentiate in the way the user can interact with the respective application and what he can adapt to his own purposes. When we look at the left, we see 5 criteria, starting from, okay, I can decide on which data source I would like to use. I can decide on which calculations I would like to apply, or which analytical approach I would like to apply. I want to decide which measures I would like to display on my dashboard. I want even maybe to change the way the information is visualized, so changing the chart type, for instance. And last but not least, I want to decide which records are included in my analysis. And the most simple one probably is what we did in the past. We send our customer an SPSS file, which today is probably the same. You can send, of course, someone an SPSS file, and on the other hand, he just should purchase an admin license, for instance, of Dapresy Pro, and then he can decide if he just wants to focus on the data source you provided, or if he would like to add an additional data source. He can decide on which analytics he would like to apply, what kind of measures he would like to see on the page, and then, of course, also decide on which visual to use, and last but not least, decide by maybe applying filters what records should be included in his analysis. So a very, very open concept. However, the challenge is you need to be experienced to do this. And we know that the group of people that use market research data that is not too familiar with market research is growing. So we see more and more people using market research data that are not attracted by data and analytics, and with maybe even the risk of misinterpretations of market research results. So that is a very risky approach, especially if you're not aware of the experience and expertise of the user. So therefore, of course, there's an extreme, which means we almost fix everything, which is then comparable with a predefined query. So the user cannot change the data source, the user cannot change the analysis, he cannot change the measures he sees on the page, he cannot even change the visualization. The only thing he can do is he can select by filtering or using filters the underlying records. So very, 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 very strict. And I want to show you a few examples here. So this is an example of a company called Fly Now, and it's a very typical visualization in market research. So we show the brand image, and we have our brand image items on the left grouped into 3 sections, from the brand differentiators to hygienic factors. And of course, we can now easily, with these predefined queries, look at the data from different perspectives. So for instance, in this case, I have chosen from the filter of the flight route, the international and domestic flights, and I decided, which is a great thing in Dapresy, that I would directly compare these two options. And now I see directly Fly Now International versus Fly Now Domestic, which is a maybe first step into getting familiar with the results. However, of course, I can easily just then decide, well, let's now fix for a moment international and look into all competitors and compare competitors, which then is the next good step maybe to look at. And again, with a few mouse clicks, I can look at the same data from a different perspective. And then last but not least, I could now, of course, decide to go one step further and just look on international routes, frequent flyers, and then just compare my brand with my main competitor in this area, and to see where we differentiate and where we improved, etc., etc. So a very simple way, of course, of working with data, and of course also to replace a lot of PowerPoint slides. So I just calculated that to provide you with all views you could decide on in this screen. You would probably need to create more than 9,000 PowerPoint slides. And the interesting part is that, of course, this kind of predefined queries can allow you to answer questions on demand. So whenever there is a discussion in the meeting and people would like to, for instance, talk about different customer classes and would like to understand, is there a difference? Do B customers experience us in a different way? Then it's a few clicks to get the details and start the discussion. So detection is very, very easy and accelerated. Of course, the understanding is still something which is maybe not 100% improved here. But of course, since you can go around the data very easily, it will also support to some extent already understanding. When we talk about understanding, it's probably better than to design dashboards that help your users to understand the flow in the data. So in this case, we talk about barriers for consideration, and we see that Fly Now customers, or that 69% of travelers consider Fly Now as their main brand for the next flight. However, 31 reject Fly Now. And the main reasons are experience, then reputation, price, and then there's another bucket. And within each of these buckets, we see then more detailed reasons so that we get a better understanding why the experience is influencing the rejection so dramatically. And then last but not least, we also see which airlines and competitors the flyers use when they reject Fly Now. So a way of helping users to understand information. So the first example, it was more about detection. Here it's we can detect, of course, something easily, but it's more about understanding. Also, to some extent, root causes. So now, for instance, you could, of course, add comments. So what do people say about difficult to reschedule a flight, so that you gain more insights maybe from the open comments. So now we talked about the data visualization suite. That is, of course, something which is very, very open. On the other hand, we have the predefined queries, which is limited, but of course provides especially unexperienced users with an easy approach to market research data. But of course, there's a third one. A third one, which at least is making sure that the used data source and calculation is fixed. So it's about a governed exploration. So only the measures you want to look at on the screen, plus the way they are visualized, plus of course the records that are considered in the analysis, they are flexible. And that helps, of course, to adapt a dashboard much better to a user requirement than with a very predefined query, because here it's mainly about filtering. Here he can decide which measures maybe he would like to see on one screen to get a better view on different aspects of the data. However, again, it needs some more experience. The user needs to understand the study design. He needs to understand, of course, also the questionnaire, just to make sure he's picking probably the right variables. However, he has a flexibility, but based on a data source that has a high quality, and all calculations like means, top two boxes, space size warnings, all this is already included, so that he is quite well guided. And to show you an example how that could look like, we at Dapresy have a tool, or launching a tool pretty soon, which we call it Story Creator. And that exactly provides this ability. The user can easily select a question from the questionnaire. And of course, the admin can decide which question should be shown in this box. Then he can select the answers he would like to look at, and then just create a visual. And of course, he can change the type of the visualization to adapt it to his purposes. Then as a next step, he can just easily go into the layout and decide, well, I would like to see two slides side by side, copy the slide, and then, for instance, decide, okay, I would like to see the same brand for the same question, but now split by gender, so that I get a first idea of the variation within the top of mind awareness. And then, of course, you can go into more detail and, for instance, add 2 more slides. On the left one, he would like to maybe directly compare top of mind and spontaneous awareness, and then maybe have the split into gender again for spontaneous awareness. And then he could add a further chart or a further slide, and in the end change of course, the type of the visualization, so the chart type. He can, of course, apply further filters. He can, of course, rearrange information, remove something, add something. However, the data source is not changeable, and also the calculations, especially when he wants to look at top 2 boxes or mean values, is already predefined, so that there is no way of changing that. And in the end, as I said, it will simplify and accelerate detection, because you can walk around the data in a very easy way, and because you can easily change specific perspectives, you can also simplify understanding. However, it needs more experience with the study design, more experience with market research. So it depends on the use case. So these are the 3 slides to see concepts we can use today, and which are available on the market. Depending on the specific user, you need to choose the right one to make sure he can make the most out of the data. Let's look for a second into mind to model, just that you have heard what the difference is, especially 2 slides to see. So mind to model application optimize prediction and enable data scientists, so a different target audience, to discover patterns that are too subtle to be identified through informal observation. So whenever you have patterns in the data that are not easy to see with a slides to see application just by using simple charts, then probably a mind to model application is more useful. And of course, whenever you want to create a model, so when you want to find the equation for a pattern, and then of course apply that in business, then these kind of applications are required. Sometimes it can be easy, like for instance, a text mining process or a journal analysis, or it can be very, very complex when using different data sources and trying to find very complex patterns. And in most cases, of course, also the visualization looks much more complex and advanced. So let's look into the third section, which is the measure to manage applications. Measure to manage applications communicate objectives and enable business people to measure, monitor, and manage the key activities and processes needed to achieve their goals. And here you can see the big difference to Slice to See. So Slice to See was mainly about getting familiar with the data, revealing insights, trying to find the core messages. Here it's more about, I present everything on the silver plate to make sure that managers can easily measure, monitor, and manage their business. And everything is very tight connected to their key activities. So we need to look into the processes they need to manage and then develop the dashboard accordingly. So the goal is to automate detection. So there's no need for the manager or user to detect something, and then simplify and accelerate understanding. Again, here we have also, of course, a few concepts. The first is about KPI dashboards. KPI dashboards is probably the simplest concept of measure to manage applications. They are focusing on monitoring. They monitor key activities, provide an at-a-glance view on the KPIs, and trigger alerts. Very simple. Just let's look into one example. Very simple example. We have three measures from a CX program, from satisfaction of recommendation to repurchase. I can easily see the trends. I can easily compare, of course, to averages and best in class. I see if the trend went up or down. So it's easy to detect. I could now, of course, maybe even apply a threshold here and color the number depending on thresholds. And then I get a few more details with regard to the performance indicators so that I have a very good at-a-glance view and can easily detect where is my biggest pain point I should act right now. So that is the purpose of a measure to manage application. A second example is this one, where we have, again, three KPIs, so satisfaction, loyalty, and NPS. And in this case, we have thresholds so that we can easily see if there is an urgent need to act. So it's about detection. And of course, I also can easily detect which country is contributing very well and where is maybe my attention needed for the next couple of weeks. So again, the KPI dashboard, very simple and supports mainly detection. Of course, in most cases, the KPI dashboard doesn't provide so much about understanding. So this is where management cockpits are useful, because they always start with a monitoring process first. So it's the same like a KPI dashboard. It's about the current status. Where are we today? Same content. But then it's about to help the manager understand why a trend is let's say like satisfaction. Why is satisfaction now dropping? And this is, of course, not answered by a KPI dashboard. So this is where a management cockpit needs to be more comprehensive and provides the user with some analysis, so especially about the influencing trends and causes, and answers the question, how did we get here? So it's not just about the what, it's a first step into the why. And I would like to share a small example. We just looked at this KPI dashboard already, where we talked about, yes, it's about automated detection. I easily understand which KPIs I maybe need to take care of or which country I need to take care of. But now we want to improve the how to simplify and accelerate the understanding. And in this case, of course, when I see Italy is maybe not performing as considered, because we have a red light here, we have gray lights here. So I click on that to get more details about this country. Now I see the KPIs in more detail with a trend in the competitive landscape and some additional measures. And again, I see a red light that has been turned on. So I see, well, complaint handling could be an issue, but maybe also others. So I click here to get a full view on all the touch points that I'm currently managing, from the website to the call center, to the booking process, to the service itself, and ending with the billing process. And what I see very easily, that my catering seems to be not working well in Italy. So now, of course, I could click again on this section and get more details about the catering to get a better understanding. Are specific customer groups affected? Or looking into the open comments to get an understanding of what do people say about the catering. So is it maybe about a bad choice, or is it about that meats are always cold and not warm? So the selection of drinks, etc., all this, of course, could be a reason for the rating regarding catering. And that is mainly about how a dashboard can help in the measure to manage application to easily detect the pain points and then help the manager to understand causes, so that this discussion about what needs to be done can be already focused on a specific area of your business. Another example of a management cockpit is, for instance, a customer experience program where you would like to immediately act on customers and the customer feedback. So again, it's about how to automate detection. In this case, whenever there are new interviews coming in, and the dashboard automatically detects, based on rules, what customer seems to be an unsatisfied customer, and pipes this into a queue so that managers can immediately take care of this customer. So in this case, we see the list of all customers that have been detected as unsatisfied based on rules. So for instance, stated in question Q3, on a scale 1 to 5, 4 or 5, and then maybe in addition stated in Q17, yes, and this makes per definition an unsatisfied customer. And then he can directly act on these customers, because he can then, for instance, click on act, and then he, on the one hand, maybe gets already the results from the questionnaire, so that he can understand this case much better. And then, of course, we accelerate the understanding, because we give him now the ability to reach out to the customer, to call the customer, to get in touch with him, to get a better understanding of what went wrong and what could be improved in the future. So again, it's about how to automate detection and then try to simplify and accelerate understanding. We talked about these two, and there's, of course, the third one, marketing intelligence applications. They add two more things to management cockpit. One is the forecasting piece, and the other one is what-if analysis. So mainly about where will we land and what must be changed to achieve or exceed our goals. However, these are, of course, in many cases not just based on market research data. So here is where a mining and modeling process needs to be in place to, for instance, allow a professional forecasting or even a what-if analysis. So I'm not going to touch this right now, because that is the difference mainly is about having then models included so that you can do forecasting and maybe to some extent a what-if analysis. So when we talk about the contents in a nutshell, what we have touched so far is the slice to see, where we have the predefined queries, governed exploration, or just the data visualization suite. On the other hand, we have the measure to manage application that are KPI dashboard, management cockpit, and marketing intelligence applications that include already models. And of course, we have the mine to model section where we talk about pre-packaged mining apps, like a churn analysis app or then, of course, again, a pseudo framework that allows a data scientist to do whatever he would like to do. We touched in a very short way these examples. So predefined queries and governed exploration, KPI dashboard and management cockpits. And when we look into the different market research approaches, I think we can agree that, of course, the slice to see section is mainly for tox studies, or studies that are not too often conducted, so maybe once a year or every second year. However, everything that is, of course, conducted on a weekly basis, for instance, like a campaign management or customer closed loop, which can be even conducted on an hourly level, then, of course, we need to create a dashboard that supports the management process that should be optimized. In the end, what we need to do is we need to create a purposeful and user-suitable plan, which means if I have a manager who wants to manage this business, I think he will be quite unhappy if I present him with a dashboard that is mainly a slice to see application, because that forces him to, you know, click a lot and look into different perspectives, with the risk of course, being lost in data, with the risk of misinterpretation of results. So that is probably not the best way to do a dashboard. However, if you're a researcher or an analyst, I think you will be also very unhappy if you just get a KPI dashboard with the most relevant measures. So then, of course, you prefer probably a slice to see application to be able to drill into the detail and so to say, play around with the data to reveal new insights, or, of course, be able to answer questions on the fly. Then we need to make sure in the combinations plan that we support the user in the best way. So we need to help him so that he's not lost in the detail by simplifying and accelerating detection and understanding. So we need to make sure in the beginning that we improve the process of detection, and then, of course, also improve the process of understanding. Because then, in the end, he has more time he can spend on a deep understanding by maybe discussing with colleagues, with experts, gathering further content and context, and, of course, he can also spend more time on the discussion which alternative might be the best to use or choose. Well, and if we do all this, we probably create an optimal experience. And I'm very, very sure that in the end, we will gain more insights faster, because on the one hand, we allow users to more easily access the data and play around with the data, or on the other hand, present the data on the silver plate and just point to what is really relevant. We will make sure that the data will be used more intensively, because it's much easier to be used, and also to some extent maybe more entertaining. And of course, since it's always and everywhere available, there's no need to search for a file somewhere on the server. And last but not least, we will save money long term, because we just make more out of our data, which in the end, of course, when we do it right, will on the other hand increase the return, and on the other hand will just reduce the investment into all the reporting. For those who would like to look into all our examples in more detail and see them in action, just go to our website, dapresy.com, click on the right corner on the button Speak to an Expert, and reach out to Dapresy. And I'm sure that one of my colleagues will be very happy to introduce you to the respective showcases in more detail. And of course, we can discuss more about how they can be used and what great additional features you can have when using Dapresy as your dashboard solution. Thanks so much, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Alexander. I don't think that for the moment there is any questions on the Q&A or on the chat.
Okay.
anyone has any questions, it's the moment to type it on the chat. If not, you will, as Alexandra just said, please get on dapresy.com and we'll answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Oh, we have one question, which is, Alexandra, do you recommend different approaches tailored to different industries?
Well, first of all, of course, you can combine the different approaches when we talk about different users. So, for instance, you could have, on the one hand, a top management that maybe wants to see a KPI dashboard. Then maybe you have a product manager who needs a management cockpit to get more details. And then maybe you have even an analyst that is able to really slice and dice the data in the way that is needed, especially to answer questions on the fly. And when talking about different industries, I think that it's not so much about the industry. However, there are, of course, maybe more or some industries that are more forerunners and are more familiar with dealing with data and analytics. And then there might be industries that are more traditional, but it's more about the user who should make the most out of the data, not the industry. So I currently don't see that there's a big variation in different industries.
We have another one, which is on the management of the data prior to the production of data and graph. And Scott says that, of course, it feels like a lot of the ability to produce a strong output depends on the data management. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, sure, of course. So two things, basically. Of course, the data management gets more and more relevant. So we need to make sure that the data is on a level that it's appropriate to answer business questions. But I would even say that this starts with the right market research approach or the design of the study, so that there's always a business question that is the driver for a market research study, because then I can link, of course, all my dashboard concepts directly to the best way of answering these business questions. And the data management part in the middle mainly makes sure that we have the right data quality in place. Does it answer the question?
I hope so. And Scott asks also if the discovery can happen in the tool.
Yeah, so we do already a lot of data management in the tool. However, of course, we are working on improving this section because we see that as a very important part for the future. So there will be over time more and more features included that take care of the data management part, which is currently sometimes, depending on the needs, done either before uploaded into the data or directly in the data, depending on the needs. So, for instance, weighting can be done directly in our system, cleaning can be done in the system, recoding can be done in the system. So there are a lot of features already you can use directly in the system. However, there are, of course, from time to time data management requirements that are currently not covered, but we are working on that to improve that.
One more question about the difference between Dapresy and the rest of and the other data visualization tools like Tableau, Click, or Synthesis. Can you explain?
So I think mainly Tableau was designed, when we talk about Tableau for a second, but also Click Sense, both were designed to help people that work a lot with Excel to improve their process, because on the one hand, Excel struggled with bigger data sources. On the other hand, Excel does not provide any good interactivity to really explore data. So this is why Tableau and ClickSense were invented, to take care of everyone who would like to really, instead of using Excel, use something that is more suitable when dealing with bigger data sources and then interactively explore the data. However, when it comes to market research data, of course, they don't have so many market research specific features built in. So things like SIG testing, base size warnings, or that you even hide the results when the base size is too low. Things like, of course, also the weighting component. All this is built in Dapresy, so that it's easy to use and you don't need to build all this in a BI environment. So that is probably also a very, very big differentiator. And last but not least, of course, if it's about communication, and of course market research is a lot about communication, and you want to, of course, include more and more people in the market research findings, and especially when we talk about customer experience, then it's about doing also to some extent infotainment and presenting the information in a way that it's really like wow and easy to capture and easy to interpret. And I think that is another differentiator. So mainly I would say that applications like Tableau and Click are more focusing on business analysts and more on non-market research data, whereas Dapresy is focusing on the market research or market research data plus additional data that is relevant, and also supports much better the communication to a mass audience that is not attracted by data and analytics.
Thank you very much. I think we're almost it's almost the end. Thanks everyone. Again, don't hesitate to contact us on our website, and we will get back to you soon, maybe with another with a new webinar. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.